That day, many believed they would see the familiar faces of the Rolling Stones beside Charlie Watts' coffin. But they did not appear. Their absence left the world in silence, raising unanswered questions. Was it a coincidence, or a choice too heavy with grief to face? Reflecting on the long journey they had shared, it becomes clear that some decisions are too hard to explain, some emotions go beyond words, and some responsibilities can only be understood by those who bear them. This farewell was not only for a legend, but also a way a lifelong friendship came to terms with loss. Charlie Watts was born on June 2, 1941, in London, England. He grew up in a middle-class family, where his childhood was marked by simplicity and traditional values. Unlike many rock musicians of his era, Charlie had a calm, reserved, and humble nature. While rock and roll often thrived on chaos and rebellion, he embodied serenity, carrying a quiet elegance that set him apart. When he joined the Rolling Stones in 1963, he quickly became the band's silent heartbeat. Charlie was never the one craving the spotlight, yet every beat of his drum became the solid ground that allowed Mick Jagger and Keith Richards to soar with energy. People often said that if the Rolling Stones were a storm, then Charlie was the earth that kept the storm from sweeping everything away. His drumming was not flashy, but it was remarkably precise and subtle, each strike carrying a perfect sense of rhythm that gave life to the band's legendary sound. Across nearly 6 decades, he helped shape albums that are now timeless, from Sticky Fingers to Exile on Main Street, and Some Girls. Millions of fans around the world felt his rhythm through countless tours, yet behind the spectacle of rock and roll, Charlie quietly nurtured his lifelong love for jazz and blues. Those genres had been with him from the beginning, and he never let them go. His personal life was just as unique. In 1964, he married Shirley Ann Shepherd, and their love endured for almost 60 years, an extraordinary feat in the turbulent world of show business. They had no children, but their relationship was filled with deep affection, built on respect and unwavering loyalty. Shirley remained his anchor through every high and low, allowing them to share a quiet life, far removed from the noise of fame. Beyond music, Charlie was a passionate collector of rare books, art, and design. His refined taste reflected a love for elegance and depth in all aspects of life. It was a side few knew, yet it revealed the true essence of who he was, an artist who appreciated beauty in its purest form. Charlie Watts is remembered not only for his artistry but also for the way he lived. He was a true gentleman of rock and roll, carrying himself with grace, calm, and devotion. To his friends, his family, and his music, he gave the gift of respect and sincerity. His presence will always remind the world that sometimes the greatest power is not in noise, but in the quiet strength that touches hearts everywhere. When Charlie Watts, the quiet and steady drummer of the Rolling Stones, passed away in 2021, the music world seemed to pause in grief. Fans everywhere expected to see the familiar faces of the band at his funeral, yet the moment never came. Mick Jagger was not there. Keith Richards was not there. Ronnie Wood was not there. Their absence struck like a shockwave, leaving many bewildered, asking questions with no clear answers. But behind that absence was not coldness, nor indifference. It was something far more complex, filled with emotions too heavy to share with the public. For decades, they had stood side by side, on stage, on the road, through triumphs and trials alike. That bond was not something the outside world could easily measure. Sometimes grief runs so deep that to stand before the world in such a moment is simply impossible. Sometimes love and respect are shown not by presence, but by silence. What fans witnessed was only the empty space at the funeral. What they could not see was the depth of private sorrow, the weight of memories, and the reverence that words or appearances could never capture. This absence became a mystery, one that made people want to look closer, to search for meaning. Yet perhaps the truth lies in the silence itself. Sometimes silence is not emptiness, it is the loudest voice of all. In that quiet, love, respect, and loss spoke more powerfully than any presence could ever do. Charlie Watts left more than just the steady sound of his drumming. He left a story of resilience, of a man fighting to find himself again amid life's fiercest storms. In the early 1980s, he was known as the calm anchor of the Rolling Stones, a quiet contrast to Mick Jagger's fire and Keith Richards' wildness. But around 1983, his world began to unravel. What started as small habits with alcohol and drugs grew into shadows that consumed him. He later admitted it wasn't the thrill of a rock star's excess, but rather his way of coping with deep family struggles. At one point, Charlie nearly lost everything: his marriage, his family, even his own sense of self. Yet Shirley, the woman who had been with him since the beginning, never left. Her patience and loyalty became the light that guided him back. Charlie would later call those years his midlife crisis, a time when he was forced to face the darkest corners of himself. And he emerged stronger. Slowly, he regained control, gave up his addictions, and made one of the most important choices of his life, quitting smoking. For someone who had endured decades of tours and recordings, it was a gift to his health and spirit. But life tested him again. In 2004, news broke that Charlie had throat cancer, leaving fans and friends around the world in shock. Months of grueling radiation treatments drained him, yet his determination never faltered. He fought, recovered, and by 2005, was back in the studio, then on stage for a 2-year world tour. His perseverance became a symbol of strength, proving that neither age nor illness could silence his passion. Then in 2021, health finally forced him to pause. On August 5, the Rolling Stones announced that Charlie would miss the No Filter tour in the US following heart surgery. It was one of the rare times in nearly 6 decades that he wasn't behind the drums. Steve Jordan, a trusted friend and skilled drummer, was chosen to step in. But this wasn't just a replacement, it was a gesture of deep respect. For the Rolling Stones, Charlie was never simply the drummer. He was the heartbeat, the quiet force that kept the storm steady, from the very beginning to the final chapter of his journey. On August 24, 2021, the world of music fell silent. Charlie Watts, the quiet yet unshakable drummer who had carried the heartbeat of the Rolling Stones for nearly 6 decades, passed away at the age of 80 at the Royal Brompton Hospital in London. He left this world because of cancer, but even in his final hours, he remained dignified, serene, and true to himself. There was no spectacle, no crowd, no flashing cameras. Only his family and loved ones by his side, quietly saying goodbye to the man who had once set the rhythm for an entire generation. The news spread quickly, leaving fans stunned and colleagues heartbroken. Mick Jagger shared a photo of Charlie smiling, a reminder of his warmth and joy. Keith Richards chose silence, posting only a picture of a closed drum kit, a simple yet powerful tribute to his lifelong friend. Ronnie Wood spoke of brotherhood, of decades spent together, while Bill Wyman, though long departed from the band, remembered Charlie as a gentleman, graceful and deeply loyal. Tributes poured in from far beyond the Stones. Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Elton John, Brian Wilson, Pete Townsend, Nick Mason, Roger Daltrey, Bryan Adams, Liam Gallagher, Brian May, Roger Taylor, Chad Smith, and many more legends spoke with admiration. To them, Charlie was not only a masterful drummer, but also a rare example of humility and elegance in the often chaotic world of rock and roll. After his passing, the Rolling Stones official website became a place of remembrance. For 10 days, it showed nothing but a single black and white photo of Charlie. No captions, no links, no distractions. Just his presence, silent but powerful. And in that stillness, millions of people realized that what remains eternal is not the noise or the spectacle, but the spirit, the music, and the love that Charlie Watts left behind in the hearts of all who knew him. After Charlie Watts passed away, the music world felt an irreplaceable emptiness. His rhythms still echoed through timeless songs, yet the silence of his absence was undeniable. Just 2 days later, Jason Isbell and Brittany Spencer stepped onto the stage to honor him with a live cover of Gimme Shelter. Their performance wasn't just a song, it was a heartfelt farewell, a reminder that Charlie's influence reached far beyond the Rolling Stones. Every beat he played carried inspiration, not only for his bandmates, but for generations of musicians who came after. Their tribute was filled with respect and emotion, showing the depth of what Charlie left behind. A few days later, on August 27, the Rolling Stones shared a moving tribute video. It featured rare photos and clips of Charlie, set to the 1974 track If You Can't Rock Me. With every frame and every note, the video told the story of his life, his energy on stage, his quiet humor, his unmistakable charm. On stage, he often joked about being a destructive machine, yet those who looked closer saw the elegance and humor beneath. His funeral was held privately in Devon, away from the public eye. No bright lights, no flashing cameras, just a quiet and intimate farewell that perfectly reflected the man he was, a gentleman who never sought the spotlight, but let the music speak instead. Charlie's legacy, however, continued to grow. In October 2022, an authorized biography was released, offering fans a deeper look into the heart and philosophy of the man behind the drums. On the first anniversary of his passing, Mick Jagger shared a touching tribute, combining archival images of Charlie with his own voice singing Till the Next Goodbye. Rolling Stone magazine called it a profound homage, a reminder that while Charlie was gone, his spirit was everlasting. He lived on in the rhythms, in the smiles, and in the countless memories he gave to the world. These quiet tributes, filled with love and meaning, remind us all that true greatness is not measured by noise or spectacle, but by the impact and affection one leaves in the hearts of others. On June 2, 2023, what would have been Charlie Watts' 82nd birthday, his family made a gesture that felt both unexpected and deeply meaningful. They launched his official Facebook and Instagram accounts. During his life, Charlie had always kept himself far away from the spotlight of social media. He was quiet, reserved, and let his drumming speak louder than any words online ever could. Yet his family knew that fans all around the world longed for a place to honor him, to remember his contributions not only to rock and roll, but also to blues and jazz, and to celebrate the man behind the music. Each post, each photo shared on those pages carries a piece of Charlie's spirit. They show not only the legendary drummer, but also the gentleman in his everyday moments, a husband, a father, a man of quiet grace and elegance. For fans, these glimpses feel like fragments of memory, a bridge that connects them back to him, even in his absence. But the tributes didn't stop there. In September of that same year, the world learned of another intimate piece of Charlie's legacy, his personal book collection being put up for auction. These were not just books, but treasures that reflected his refined taste and lifelong appreciation for art and culture. Among the highlights was a signed first edition of The Great Gatsby, expected to reach between $200,000 and $300,000. Beyond its monetary value, it was a testament to Charlie's love for literature, for beauty, and for keeping close the works that defined human creativity. From launching his social media presence to opening his private library to the world, Charlie's family showed that his presence continues to live on. Fans may no longer see him behind the drum kit, but they can still feel him in the rhythms that endure, in the pages of books he once cherished, and in the quiet yet powerful influence he left behind. Charlie Watts gave the world more than just music. He left a legacy of spirit, where every beat, every refined choice, and every personal treasure tells the story of a rich soul, a dignified life, and a timeless love for beauty that will never fade. In January 2024, another chapter of Charlie Watts' legacy came to light when the Natural History Museum in France announced that they had purchased a full-scale replica of the biological tapestry from his estate, at a price of £16,000. It wasn't just a collector's item. It was a reflection of the man himself, someone discreet, refined, yet deeply passionate. Beyond his music, Charlie had always nurtured a quiet love for art, history, and cultural treasures that stood the test of time. Every piece in his collection seemed to tell a story, revealing the soul of a man who chose depth over noise, elegance over extravagance. And then came the question that fans had carried in their hearts: why were the Rolling Stones not present at Charlie Watts' funeral? At the time of his passing, the band was in Boston, fully immersed in final rehearsals for the long-delayed No Filter tour in the United States. This was no ordinary tour. Every detail had been meticulously planned, from lighting and sound to fireworks and video projections. Hundreds of crew members, technicians, and workers depended on this tour for their livelihood. Any disruption could have been devastating. There was also the weight of responsibility toward their fans. Thousands had held onto their tickets, waiting patiently for over a year after the pandemic forced cancellations. To delay once more would not only harm the band's reputation, but also crush the spirits of those who had waited so long. On top of it all, international travel restrictions in August 2021 made things nearly impossible. The Delta variant of COVID-19 was spreading fast, and traveling to Devon for the funeral would have required Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, or Ronnie Wood to isolate for weeks, jeopardizing the entire tour. The risks were immense, the time too short, and the health of everyone involved had to remain the highest priority. The Rolling Stones had built a strict protective bubble around their tour, and breaking it, even for a farewell as important as this, could have brought everything crashing down. Yet perhaps the most telling reason lay in Charlie Watts himself. He had always been a man of humility, shunning spectacle and unnecessary attention. It's easy to believe that he would not have wanted his friends and bandmates to risk everything or break their commitments because of him. In his quiet way, Charlie might have seen their choice to carry on as the greatest tribute of all. So their absence at his funeral was not a sign of neglect. It was a difficult decision, born of love, responsibility, and respect. Sometimes, true friendship and devotion are not shown through presence, but through carrying forward the values and the journey shared together. For Charlie Watts, that journey was music, and the Rolling Stones honored him by keeping the rhythm alive. The Rolling Stones knew deep down that Charlie Watts would never have wanted his farewell to be turned into a grand spectacle, because his entire life was marked by humility, discretion, and a quiet elegance. Yet their absence from his funeral did not mean silence or neglect. Each night on the No Filter tour, the shows began with a powerful tribute video, where Charlie appeared behind his drum kit, graceful, precise, and calm, as if still there, keeping the heartbeat of the band. The giant screens carried his image, reminding thousands in the audience that the pulse of the Stones was still alive in every rhythm Charlie left behind. Beyond the video, there were subtle but powerful gestures. The iconic tongue and lips logo, usually blazing red, was turned into black and white. A simple change, yet it carried immense weight, symbolizing grief, loss, and remembrance. On stage, Mick Jagger often paused to speak about Charlie, recalling heartfelt stories of his sharp wit, quiet humor, and the friendship that had bound them for more than half a century. Off the stage, the tributes continued. Keith Richards posted a stark but moving image of Charlie's drum kit with a single closed sign hanging above it, plain, understated, but filled with reverence. Mick Jagger shared a warm photograph of Charlie smiling, a reminder that his greatest legacy was not only the music but also the quiet joy he spread to everyone around him. These gestures, both grand and intimate, perfectly reflected Charlie's essence, simple, reserved, but full of life and depth. They touched millions of hearts around the world, making it clear that although Charlie was no longer physically on stage, his presence filled every note, every cheer, every memory carried by the fans. Each performance, each image, each sound became a tribute, a bridge between memory, music, and the love reserved for the man who was forever the heartbeat of the Rolling Stones. Although they could not attend the funeral, the love the Rolling Stones carried for Charlie Watts never faded. He was more than a drummer, he was the soul that kept the band together. Their absence that day only underlined a painful truth: they had lost a beloved brother, and no presence could truly capture the depth of that grief. The friendship, the brotherhood, and the music they created together remain the most beautiful farewell to Charlie.